This is CBC Here and Now.
Patients got COVID-19 while in a St. John's hospital. I'm Mark Quinn, and I'll tell you more coming up on Here and Now.
I think this is usually sort of almost an act of desperation, right? I don't think that somebody takes a class and thinks, oh, I'm going to cheat my way through. No.
A spike in cheating at Memorial University since classes moved to online last year.
But the rules weren't designed to deal with virtual learning. How is MUN adapting?
Area of low pressure bringing a wintry mix today. Essentially the same forecast as we head through midweek as well.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We start tonight with details of COVID-19 inside a St. John's hospital.
CBC News has learned that the virus that causes COVID-19 has spread within St. Clair's. Patients who didn't have COVID when they first went to hospital later caught it while inside. Here Now's Mark Quinn explains.
Multiple sources who work within the healthcare system in St. John's tell CBC News that 2 patients and a staff member here at St. Clair's Hospital contracted the virus while they were within the healthcare system. On February 10th, before the more contagious variant was identified in this province, a healthcare worker at St. Clair's learned at work that they were positive. They were on the job after being advised by Eastern Health that they could return to work while waiting for a COVID-19 test result. The positive healthcare worker was on the same St. Clair's ward where 2 patients and a staff member subsequently contracted the virus. It's not known if that first case is linked to the 2 patients and a staff member who later tested positive. What is known is that those 2 patients did not have COVID-19 before going to hospital. Those 2 patients have been transferred to the COVID ward at the Health Sciences Centre. Privacy concerns prevent CBC News from reporting some details it has learned. CBC News contacted Eastern Health and unions that represent people who work in the healthcare system. All of them said they couldn't comment for privacy reasons. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
And there are more cases of COVID-19 to tell you about tonight. 15 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 announced today, all in the eastern region. The bulk of the new cases, 10 of them, are people between the ages of 40 and 60. There are no presumptive positive cases. But the number of recoveries is significant. 50 people have recovered in the last day from the illness. And as Mark mentioned, there are some hospitalizations. 5 people are in the hospital, 2 of them in intensive care.
Well, as we've been reporting, Eastern Health wants all members of the Mount Pearl Senior High School community to be retested for COVID, even if they've already tested negative. Tonight, one family in St. John's is talking about why they think that's good advice. 3 of the 4 members of John Bennett's family tested positive for coronavirus, even though Bennett himself initially tested negative. Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports.
We have 3 out of 4 in the house that do have COVID.
One by one, John Bennett, his wife Jillian, and his 6-year-old son Noah have all tested positive for COVID-19. But so far, his 10-year-old son John, who has cystic fibrosis, has tested negative 4 times and has no symptoms.
John is downstairs in our rec room doing the best he can. You know, he's still attending online school.
Bennett went to the Biggs restaurant in Mount Pearl with friends on Thursday, February 4th, but he isn't certain where exactly he picked up the virus since there was community spread of a contagious coronavirus variant in the metro region. He felt sick a few days after visiting the Biggs but tested negative for the virus. Then his wife felt ill and tested positive for COVID-19.
My wife Jillian was certainly more, worse for the wear. And she was, because she tested first one to test positive, so she was kind of in our bedroom away from everybody for days on end, and that remains.
Bennett says he was shocked when he later received a positive result, but his boys still tested negative.
We kept them separated. We did our best we could. And then Noah had some symptoms on Saturday, and he came back, his positive test came back yesterday morning. So John got retested again on yesterday, so that was his 4th or 5th time, and His test came back this morning that he was negative.
Now Bennett says he's trying to be cognizant of his mental health and his children's since they've been cooped up in their home for so long.
I think we'd probably be in worse shape if it wasn't for our family and friends, and I guess the outreach from, it feels like the community at large.
Friday, Eastern Health asked anyone a part of the Mount Pearl Senior High School community to get tested again before leaving isolation, even if they have a negative result already or don't have symptoms. Bennett says his family's story is one of the reasons why people should follow the public health guidelines, get tested and retested. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
A lot of people I talk to are extremely concerned about COVID. We are nervous.
Coming up, we'll speak with the chief and find out how members of the Qalipu First Nation are coping with COVID-19 and all the health restrictions.
It has an impact on everybody.
Temperatures today a little bit warmer than what we have been seeing over the past couple of days. Reached a high near 1 degree in St. John so far this afternoon. Temperatures hovering around the 0 degree mark or a little bit below as you head towards central and the west coast, and then well above where we should be sitting up through Labrador. -2 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. It was a beautiful afternoon today. Taking a look at our satellite and radar right now, area of low pressure just to the south. It is bringing some snow, which was heavy at times earlier this afternoon, and we're starting to see that transition through to rain for the southern portion of the Avalon. The other thing to note with this one as well is some of the winds. So the winds will be breezy now between now essentially and around 8 or 9 o'clock, and then as we head towards the overnight hours, those winds will ease a little bit, anywhere between 40 to 50 kilometer per hour winds. And then tomorrow night, we're going to see those winds ramp up again. I'll have those details in your full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. A fire in the Goulds neighborhood in St. John's has meant a devastating loss to the Woodland Dairy Farm. The St. John's Regional Fire Department was still on the scene this morning, putting out hot spots from a massive fire that destroyed a barn last night. Firefighters say about 75 cows were killed in the fire, but that number could continue to rise. About 25 of the animals were saved. A spokesperson for the RNC says officers remained on the scene for part of the day and the fire is still under investigation. Well, here's something to be on the lookout for. Scammers are making automated phone calls pretending to be from the legal branch of the Department of Digital Government and Service NL. Now, they're changing the caller ID to make it look like the department is calling, but the number is fake. The government says if you get one of these calls, just hang up right away, even if it's coming from a local number.
Voter turnout in this election that just keeps going and going is on track to be the lowest in this province's history. Elections NL is estimating 120,000 people applied for their mail-in ballot. It won't know the exact numbers until it finishes processing applications. But if the estimate stands and everyone who applied for a vote sends back their ballot, voter turnout would be at just over half of eligible voters, around 51%. Compare that to the most recent provincial election. In 2019, voter turnout was about 10% better than that, at 61%. The lowest turnout on record for a provincial election, that was 55%, and that was in 2015 when the Liberals won a landslide majority with 31 out of 40 seats. Well, the latest poll shows less support for people casting a ballot now than people that already cast a ballot in early special polls. The Liberals take a decisive lead in the advanced polls, according to Main Street Research. Just under 59% of people who've already voted say they voted Liberals. The PC came in at just under 30%, the NDP close to 7%, nearly 4% voted for an independent candidate, with less than 1% for the NL Alliance. Now, let's compare the second numbers. According to Main Street, this is what decided voters who haven't set in their ballot yet are thinking. There's nearly a 10-point difference for the Liberals, while support for the other parties goes up. 4% more for the PCs, 3 extra for the NDP, and the NL Alliance goes up about 1.5 points. Support for the independent stays the same. 1,012 people were surveyed on Saturday and Sunday to get this data. The margin of error, plus or minus 3.1%, 19 times out of 20. As we know by now, all remaining ballots will be sent out and back by mail. So this next news isn't great. The RNC says someone has been damaging community mailboxes in Metro St. John's and stealing what's inside. Police released this photo today. They say several of the so-called super mailboxes have been broken into. They believe the suspect drives a gray Mazda 3 sedan with a loud muffler.
Well, thousands of Memorial University students are now learning remotely, but since the switch to online, there's been a spike in the number of academic misconduct cases. In other words, cheating. Here Now's Terry Roberts reports.
2 years ago, just 8 cases of alleged academic misconduct made its way to the Senate for full investigation here at MUN. Then the pandemic hit. Students were sent home to learn remotely, and now the situation has changed. The number of cases increased significantly. 46 in the academic year that ended last August. 44 so far this year.
Yeah, we're alarmed. Obviously, it's concerning. Academic integrity is a very high priority for the university because we're only as good as our graduates.
This is not unique to MUN. Educational leaders worldwide are grappling with this problem, trying to balance the need for academic integrity with the unprecedented challenges being faced by students and their instructors.
What's happening is that there's a lot of websites these days that essentially a student could upload a question, an equation-based question to that website, and that website would then generate an answer and provide it. And then sometimes what happens is instructors may actually go online and search their evaluation and find that their evaluation has been posted on this website. Or they may see that multiple students have answered a question with the same format that is unusual or not something that they would have been exposed to naturally in that course.
This professor teaches math, has not encountered any overt cases of cheating.
I've certainly heard a lot about it.
Says the problem seems to be isolated to larger classes and is typically an act of desperation on the part of students.
I don't think that somebody takes a class and thinks, oh, I'm going to cheat my way through. No, I think people take a class and then they see, oh, there's a lot of work and, oh, I missed the first few weeks and now I don't have the basic knowledge and stuff and now I have a deadline. And so out of desperation, kind of, you think, I need to get a passing grade, so I would do anything, and then this cheating comes up.
The Students' Union agrees.
What's going on at Memorial may not really be the first priority of most of the people involved right now. And so I think that sometimes students may be making decisions in a very clouded headspace, or they're in a situation where they're not exactly thinking clearly.
The rules around cheating were not written for this online scenario. MUN has adapted by encouraging ongoing assessments as opposed to more formalized testing. Is also discouraging live video supervision of students writing tests.
Our instructors have been very innovative in what they're using for assessment tools, and they recognize the importance of academic integrity, and they are very reluctant to award credit for a student they do not believe has earned the skills necessary to pass that particular course.
This professor has some advice for students.
Be honest, communicate with your instructors. Instructors are very, they feel for the students as well. In fact, the instructors want the students to succeed. Nobody wants to fail their students.
While these numbers are notable, the leadership here at MUN is not ready to call this a plagiarism pandemic. After all, there are more than 18,000 students here at MUN. And of the 46 cases that went to the Senate last year, more than half the students were found not guilty. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, members of the Qalipu First Nations say they're experiencing some hardships because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight, the Qalipu chief tells Here and Now's Colleen Connors how he's supporting the community.
Chief Brendan Mitchell spoke outside of an empty office today, with staff working from home trying to provide the same level of service to thousands of members across the province.
Everybody is concerned. It impacts the way we interact with our own people, the way we socialize, the way we meet with family members, yes, the way we go to church, and even the way we bury our dead. So it has an impact on everybody, and a lot of people I talk to are extremely concerned about COVID. We are nervous.
Qalipu First Nation members make up one of the largest First Nations groups in the nation, with members living in bigger centres like Corner Brook and some smaller isolated areas on the west coast. To accommodate, Qalipu First Nation applies for federal funding specific to Indigenous groups to help pay for childcare for Mi'kmaq who are frontline workers, and specific Qalipu business owners that need help getting through COVID-19 restrictions and closures.
And we know people are taking advantage of it because we're getting a lot of inquiries, and we're finding a way to get this money to people as quickly as we can. And when we finish up with that program, or when that money runs out, we'll try for more money to keep a similar program going.
The chief's biggest concern right now is the lack of a plan for vaccinations. He hasn't heard of any specific rollout, even though the province has committed to vaccinating Indigenous groups early.
And that's a concern when people say we're going to have a phase 2 rollout. Is not here yet. We don't know what the plan is. It's difficult to plan when you don't have the supply availability, and that's a problem.
Chief Mitchell says he will continue to push government for a finalized vaccination rollout plan for members of the Qalipu First Nation during his weekly meetings with government. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, Peter, time is running out to vote in the Good Deeds Cup, and a team from Mount Pearl is in the running.
Yeah, let's take a look at their submission.
When you're a kid, you know that when you have a problem, you can talk to your mom, or your dad, or your coach, or even your friends. But not every kid is that lucky. That's why our good deed is to raise money for the Kids Help Phone, a national support service for kids to talk or text about anything they want to. Because every single one of us sometimes needs someone to talk to.
Well, the top prize is $100,000. If the City Tire Blues win, they plan to donate the money to Kids Help Phone. They are the last team from this province in the running for the prize.
And voting ends tomorrow. You can cast your ballot online. And last year, the Northeast Eagles from Torbay won the cup and gave the money to Rainbow Riders. So good luck.
Good luck.
A proposed plan about what to do with a trail system that runs through St. John's has gotten a lot of attention. Now, the city's extending the deadline for people to have their say. I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Well, it's another day in lockdown across Newfoundland and Labrador, but many folks are finding ways to make the most of it. This week on Here Now, we asked you to send us your pictures of what lockdown life looks like on your side of the screen.
Yeah, it's a great way to brighten up our evening. So let's take a moment to see some of your photos. Lots of parents are helping their children with more than just homework. In St. John's, here's Dad Jamie Chang helping his son Liam with Taekwondo practice.
I noticed Dad has the pads there, not the kid, but did you know that Zoom meetings aren't just for work? Claire Rideout shared this screen grab of some of the babies in her life having a virtual play date.
That's adorable.
Not all of them look thrilled at the idea, though.
No, and it seems like many of you are keeping busy building backyard rinks. Jessica Goss and her family made their rink a little more magical with some fantastic outdoor lighting.
That looks great.
Yeah.
Yep, you can also build your fun inside as well. Nicole Beverly shared this shot of an enormous blanket fort that has clearly now taken over her living room, and now I want nothing more than to climb inside it.
And finally, many of us have furry friends to help keep us company in a lockdown. Here's Ryan Skinner finding some joy by just throwing snow for her little pal, Gracie. Thank you all so much for sharing those moments with us, and please keep them coming. Email your photos of lockdown life to nlphotos@cbc.ca. We'll be featuring more of your pics throughout the week.
Nice to see people enjoying their lockdown. Quite a few people taking advantage of the time to go outside. And Ashley, if they went out this morning, they were in for a treat, but unfortunately not so much this afternoon.
Yeah, the beautiful start to the day today, and it was a lot warmer than it has been the last couple of mornings. Let's take a look at our temperatures as we walked out the door this morning. -6 in St. John's, -9 in Gander, and then those temperatures into the minus teens for most of Labrador except for Lab City. You saw a morning low near around -23, but the temperatures this afternoon rebounded beautifully. -5 in Lab City today, temperatures in the minus single digits across most of the Big Land, and then even climbing above zero right now for parts of the Avalon as well as eastern Newfoundland. Marystown reached a high near 2 degrees so far today, and 1 in St. John's. And the reason for that is an area of low pressure that is moving through in the process of that. So we're seeing snow across most of the island. It'll reach the northern peninsula as we head through the evening hours tonight. But if I zoom in there, if you haven't changed over to rain yet, you will very shortly. And it should stay as rain and drizzle as we head through the overnight tonight for most of eastern Newfoundland. So let's just time that out using the future tracker. You can see that snow through central. Only eastern Newfoundland should change over. We may see some drizzle as you head towards Gander, but most of that should be for essentially Gander eastward, and it will taper to drizzle overnight tonight with the temperatures dropping a little bit, so we could even see a few more flurries in the mix. But then as far as snowfall goes for the northern peninsula, you're going to see that continue through most of the night, but again, it should just be flurries, generally light accumulations, maybe 5 centimeters at the most. That area of low pressure will move out as we head into the morning hours, but it should stay cloudy for the most part. So temperatures tonight hovering in and around the 0 degree mark. So where we're sitting now we may get a couple more degrees, but after that they will drop to hovering around the 0 degree mark, and then those winds will ease off as well. So the strongest winds should be between now and the next couple of hours for eastern areas, and generally out of the southeast, which is why we're seeing those warm temperatures. And then into the minus single digits towards central, the northern peninsula, and minus double digits the story for Labrador. Quiet night tonight, maybe just a few flurries in the mix. -15 in Cartwright overnight, and Lab City you should go down to about -12. Now tomorrow, that area of low pressure has moved offshore, but we're still going to see the gray skies and some flurries continuing generally along the northeast, really anywhere there, and then some onshore flurries possible for the west coast as well, and then some flurries possible for Lab West through the early evening hours, and then head towards central as well. So overall, it'll be a fairly quiet day tomorrow. Temperatures will bump up again, so we may see a few showers in the mix or drizzle for eastern areas. Those winds again will ramp up into the evening hours. Northwesterlies about 40 to 70 kilometers per hour. and then hovering around 0, and those well above seasonal temperatures will stick around for Labrador. -5 will be the afternoon high in Happy Valley Goose Bay. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecasts. Thursday into Friday, we're looking at another area of low pressure moving in, but I'll have those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. The City of St. John's is extending the deadline for residents to weigh in on a proposal that has become a bit of a controversial issue. Plans to widen the Kelly's Brook Trail and put down a new surface has seen mixed reaction from residents. Here now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
A city council proposed plan about what to do with a trail system that runs through St. John's has certainly got a lot of feedback and a lot of attention, with various user groups wanting to have their say on what should be done with the trail system. So the City of St. John's opened up its Engage St. John's website, which allowed residents a chance to have their say. Now they're extending the deadline to the end of the month.
What we're trying to do is create a more sustainable and accessible city.
Councillor Ian Froud is no stranger to the trail and the issues surrounding the proposed plan. He believes this project will help open up the city.
Some people have difficulty affording living in the city, so what this project does is provide a mobility option, be a way to get around that doesn't cost you $700 a month for a vehicle.
The city's asking what surface should be used: pavement, gravel, polymer. Should there be lights, and if so, what kind?
We're getting really good feedback. We've had a focus group, a couple of public engagement sessions, and to date about 500 responses to the survey, so we're quite pleased, but want to give a further opportunity for people to have their say.
The proposed development of the Kelly's Brook Trail has upset, even angered, some user groups, like runners, walkers, and residents who don't want to see the path paved. That doesn't come as a surprise to the city councillor.
Because there's a lot of demand for active spaces in the city, and this is an opportunity to improve that. But I also hear the valid concerns around the project. So what we're trying to do in this process is to hear those perspectives and make the right decisions based on that.
Froud says it will take a month or so to compile what folks in St. John's have to say about the trail system. But he assures the public that it's not shelved and then forgotten about.
They matter to the community, they matter to council, and having insight from the public as well as groups like the city's inclusion committee and the seniors committee, the environment and sustainability experts panel, that all provides us with the guidance we need to be able to make the right decision.
And those choices will come quicker than you think. Froud says residents will see some work begin this year. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Meanwhile, the City of St. John's is looking to develop some city-owned land into affordable housing. 5 parcels are under consideration, including this stretch on Waterford Bridge Road near Bowering Park. There's also land on Forest Road, Freshwater Road, Empire Avenue, and this patch on Eric Street. The public engagement process is already underway on the Eric Street land. The city's housing division is looking to come up with public engagement plans for the other areas. It's hoping to find funding, potentially through the federal government or other partnerships. City Council will discuss the initiatives during its Committee of the Whole meeting tomorrow.
Well, in a more normal time, we're supposed to have a new government selected by now, but this particular election continues to be a roller coaster ride of twists and turns for the electorate, along with public health and election officials, but especially for the candidates involved. Many of them are getting more than they bargained for. Instead of a 4-week campaign, candidates are now facing an 8-week campaign. Elections NL says the process of counting the mail-in ballots will continue into the week of March 15th. So at this point, no one knows when the winners will be announced. Joining me now are 3 relatively new candidates who hope to join the ranks of MHAs in the House of Assembly. Sheila Fitzgerald is the PC candidate for St. Barb Lanza Meadows. Gemma Hickey is the Liberal candidate for St. John's Centre. And Amy Norman is running for the NDP in Lake Melville. So Amy Norman, let's begin with you. You're a first-time candidate, and at the best of times, running in a provincial election tends to upend one's life. How have you been affected personally and professionally by this?
It's just been such a wild ride. So in my, I guess, day job or like regular life, I work as a pharmacy technician at one of the 2 pharmacies in my entire district. So I was able to take 2 weeks off from work, but yeah, now I'm back to work full time. So that's, quite something. It's, it's a hectic time to be working in a pharmacy, frontline healthcare worker during a pandemic, and then throw on top of that a never-ending election, or at least that's what it feels like. It's been a lot. It's kind of stressful, but I don't know, trying to have fun, trying to keep it positive, but I think the lack of a finish line is kind of just a bit daunting for me at this point.
And Sheila Fitzgerald, this is your second time running. You also ran in 2019. Outside of being a candidate, you have a pretty busy professional life. You're a social worker, the mayor of Rodington-Bidarm, and president of Municipalities NL. What have you had to sacrifice to run in this election?
It was only 20 months ago. I took an 8-week without income pay cut, I guess, if you want to lack of a better word. I'm running that risk again. I'm a single mom. I have 2 teenage sons. I've had to take leave from my mayorship, being the president of Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador. And again, I had to resign from my job. So the stress right now is, I can't even describe it, to be honest with you, because I know that we are looking at 8 weeks until March the 12th, but we know that there's going to be more coming in after that. So now as we get going, and next thing you know, it turns into be 9 weeks and 10 weeks. Like when I did a calculated risk to run in this race, it was based on 28 days for the writ and for election day, and then possibly another, couple of weeks after that to find a job, because the government may never ever hire me back. So, it leaves you with that residue of, what incentive is it to really put your life and everything on the line to want to get into leadership.
And Gemma Hickey, this is also your second time putting your name on the ticket. You ran in a 2007 by-election. You probably weren't expecting an 8-week campaign either. What aspects of your life have you had to put on hold during this time?
In my situation, not much has changed. I'm still on the ground in the district. I run a youth charity for at-risk youth who are struggling on Cookstown Road. And so I found that, with a headquarters in the district, reaching out to people virtually, I've been pretty much helping people on a grander scale. I told my team from the get-go that the pandemic has changed the way we operate in the world. And so it's always good to expect and anticipate the unexpected. So we've been really good at pivoting. It's been really difficult and challenging in many ways, but there's also positives to these challenges. I've had a very difficult life in many ways, as many people have had. And so for me, I practice a lot of self-care. I work with a lot of trauma survivors. And so, it's important to reach out and I keep moving. Exercise is important. So I've been adapting on that level, and also keeping my team motivated and just reaching out to people in the district as best we can.
Well, it costs money to run a campaign, and there are never any guarantees of the outcome. Has the expense of all of this been a factor in your life? Amy Norman, let's go back to you for this one.
I'm fortunate enough to have run a pretty successful fundraising campaign, so I am personally, like, my campaign is doing fine, but I can see why the circumstances would make it hard to manage for other larger campaigns. Because like that being said, I didn't have a campaign office, like a physical building. I didn't have the large flashy signs that you might see. I pretty bare bones stuff. So I've been keeping it minimal and doing fine. So yeah, but the bigger campaigns, I can definitely understand the worry there.
Well, the fact that I had to resign from my job means that I no longer have healthcare benefits. And so if anything should happen to me or to my children, I'm not covered. I didn't bring in as much to cover all my expenses. So I expect coming out of this race that there's going to be, having to, I guess, get back on top in terms of my own personal bills and responsibilities. I certainly did not think that we were going to go as long as 9 or 10 weeks. I didn't save enough for that. I mean, and I didn't make enough money to cover all the expenses. So for me, this race has caused a lot of financial hardship. And of course, the emotional piece. I'm just wondering, like, from day to day, what's going to happen from here. I mean, the only reason why I would do this is that I really do care about this place, and I really do feel that I'm a person that can make a difference.
I've had to extend my leave from work, but I have a very supportive board of directors and team. So, Carolyn, I always put things in perspective. Yes, of course, there are stresses. There's a lot to think about financially. But honestly, the stories I'm hearing within this district, there's always someone who's in a worse position, and that really puts things in perspective for me, and keeps me focused on what we're trying to do here within this district. And I felt propelled to run in this election because of what I was doing on the ground during the pandemic this year. Bringing food to people's steps, blankets, whatever they needed. And I want to be an advocate for people in the House of Assembly, and that's what this district needs, in my opinion.
Thanks so much to all of you for opening up like this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The COVID outbreak in the Metro St. John's area has raised concerns about vaccinations and specifically about who hasn't received them yet. The Nurses Union still doesn't have any firm numbers on just how many of its members are still waiting. Yvette Coffey is president of the Registered Nurses Union. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
So we know that healthcare workers on the front lines who are dealing with COVID cases as well as long-term care homes, they're at the top of the list to get the vaccine. So what do you know about how many are still waiting to get their shot?
So from this morning's update from the government, Department of Health and the regional health authorities, we've been made aware that 58% of healthcare workers within the number 1 priority group, phase 1, have now been vaccinated with either the first or both doses. So that's really good to hear. We're eager to hear about the next rollout and to find out when the rest of the phase 1 are going to be completed and when we can then lead into the phase 2 and who's going to be in phase 2.
What have you heard from your members? Because we've heard of stories, for example, of nurses who are on the front lines doing those swabs over the last couple of weeks who still haven't had their shot, or people who are in the COVID unit and are still waiting to get their vaccine.
Most people now who are doing the swabbing and who are in the COVID units, as you say, working in the COVID units, have received the vaccine according to what we're being told. However, you know, that's only one part of protection. And we strongly urge our members to continue to do their point of care risk assessment, to assess the situation before them, the resident or the client, the patient, and to determine what appropriate PPE they should wear, and to be very vigilant with their PPE, especially in the workplaces.
Now, when the health minister was asked about the fact that there are a fair number of those tier 1 healthcare workers who still haven't been vaccinated, he blamed the healthcare workers themselves, saying some of them are refusing to get the dose. How big of an issue is that for you?
That's not a concern that I've heard being raised. The concerns that are being brought to my level are those who are waiting in the queue to be vaccinated.
So what do you make of his comments then?
Well, obviously he must have heard from someone somewhere. But you know, to say what percent of members that is, or if they're all registered nurses, is, you know, did he talk about if it's all healthcare workers? You know, I can't comment because I didn't even hear his comment.
With this recent outbreak that we've seen in the St. John's area, how much has that raised the anxiety about wanting to get vaccinated?
Our workers, you know, all healthcare workers and our members have been working on the front line in this pandemic for almost a year, and they're anxiously awaiting their turn to be vaccinated. We recognize, you know, the vaccine rollout is dependent on supply, and Dr. Haggie was very forthwith last week when he said that we just don't have it. If we had it, every single healthcare worker, every single resident of Newfoundland and Labrador would have a shot. But we're dependent on supply. And good news is, you know, Prime Minister Trudeau did announce that we are expecting more supply coming our way, and we are anxiously waiting for that to happen.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your concerns.
All right, thank you.
The Trudeau government and the newly elected Biden administration is having its first bilateral meeting today, but it's a virtual one because of the pandemic. Top priorities include the common fight against COVID-19 and rebuilding the economies on both sides of the border. There is also a plan for a high-level climate ministerial meeting to tackle environmental issues. Canada is expected to bring up the 2 Michaels imprisoned in China for more than 2 years now. Many Beijing observers say they were detained in an apparent act of retaliation over the case of Meng Wanzhou. The Huawei executive was arrested in Vancouver in 2018 at Washington's request. Well, Health Canada is just days away from a decision on the AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, if approved, it would be the third vaccine after Pfizer and Moderna to be rolled out for use here. While this is also a 2-dose vaccine, there are calls to rethink that recommendation. Amid concerns over shortage, some experts say more single shots can help inoculate more people. Vicadopia explains.
I don't like needles. With a population about the size of Alberta's, Scotland has managed to give 1 out of every 5 people at least one vaccine shot, and it's seeing promising results with just that single dose. 4 weeks after a shot, the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine was 85% effective at preventing hospitalizations. For the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, it's even higher at 94%, and for those over 80 years old, it was 81% for both vaccines.
We're absolutely delighted, and delighted on several fronts.
The lead researcher says holding off on the second dose has been worth the trade-off.
So trying to prioritize rollout of the vaccine and getting the first dose into as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, seems a sensible way forward.
Israel is also reportedly seeing similar protection. Just 1 shot was 85% effective at preventing COVID-19 symptoms in hospital staff. Quebec has already adopted the single-dose strategy amid some controversy. Even high-risk people like residents of this long-term care home got just 1 shot. 23 of them still tested positive, but officials say what matters is the worst off have just mild symptoms.
We have cases, we have an outbreak in this long-term care. The patients are not sick, so very little symptoms, no transfers to hospital care.
There's now enough real-world evidence for the rest of Canada to rethink its vaccination plans, according to one of Quebec's top health officials.
You will certainly reduce the number of hospitalizations and deaths by deferring the second dose and administering the first dose to as many people as possible.
Despite news that Health Canada may soon approve the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, Canada's vaccination efforts still have a long way to go. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
For nearly a year now, a car with Michigan plates has been parked in a lot near Toronto Pearson Airport. The owner of the 2004 Honda is in Detroit. She can't pick it up because of the months-long border closure. Meanwhile, the car has been racking up parking fees. Greg Ross has that story.
We decided to fly out of Pearson.
When Kim Richardson flew to Europe last March, she first drove from Detroit to Toronto, parking her car, a 2004 Honda Element, at this Park to Sky Airport parking lot on Dixon Road.
Paid for up and I think through the 24th. That's when our flight was supposed to come back in.
But just days after leaving, plans changed thanks to the pandemic.
Our flight changed from flying into Toronto into Detroit because the Canadian-US border was closed.
Richardson says she called the parking lot several times and sent emails in the weeks after getting home, but says she was unable to get a response. Her car sat in the Park to Sky lot for 10 months before she says she finally got in touch with the owner. He told her that if she wanted her car back, she would have to pay $2,800 in storage fees.
Like I told him, this is beyond my control, and they weren't willing to work with me at all. They were trying to tell me that the $2,800 that they're trying to charge me is cutting me a deal.
We called the number for the parking lot, and the man who answered the phone told us he was the owner, but didn't want to give us his name or appear on camera. He did tell us that he believes $2,800 is far less than Richardson owes. And he also told us he had other American clients who were parked here at the start of the pandemic and that they all found a way to get their cars. He said some even paid to have their cars towed all the way to the border. The parking lot is almost completely empty now, aside from Richardson's car. The owner says he's no longer in business. He doesn't seem willing to negotiate his price, and Richardson says $2,800 is more than the car is worth.
I mean, it's not a Mercedes, it's an 04 Honda. It's not.
Richardson wants the lot owner to waive any extra fees so she can have her car towed to the border, which she says will be costly in itself. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
One last look at the weather. Ashley, we're getting 2 low pressure systems for the price of 1 this week. We're barely through with this one. What's in store for Thursday onward?
Yeah, 1-2 punch as it seems so far. But the next area of low pressure that moves in for Thursday, we're going to see essentially the same track and essentially the same transition. So we'll time that out. Looks like by morning, most areas will already be seeing, in the southwest anyway, we'll already be seeing some snow. And then as we head into the afternoon, the southern areas of the Burin Peninsula as well as the Avalon will start to see a transition through to rain. It looks like we could see some ice pellets with this one. And then as that area of low pressure moves off Thursday night into early Friday morning, we'll see a return of some of that cooler air along the west coast, which means onshore flurries possible, and then staying generally unsettled through the day on Friday. As a ridge of high pressure moves in though, afternoon Friday for Labrador, things are going to clear out quite nicely. And then that will eventually make its way east as we head into Saturday. So temperatures will be warmer than what we're seeing today across the board. So temperatures 1 to 3 degrees above zero as our afternoon highs on Thursday. Northern Peninsula even reaching those minus single digits, and then similar temperatures for southeastern portions of Labrador. However, some of that colder air will be in play for Lab City. So minus 16 through the day, again with that potential for some flurries, and that's because that ridge of high pressure is going to bring in some of that colder air. So similar temperature for you on Friday, however more sunshine, but again staying unsettled across the board. Temperatures will be much cooler into the mid-minus single digits for areas along the west coast, and then -1 as you head towards eastern areas of the Avalon as well. Now, looking ahead into Saturday, like I said, that ridge of high pressure will dominate for a little while. So we're going to see some sunshine to start, but then some increasing cloud with the potential for some flurries. Temperatures into around -4, dipping a few more degrees overnight, and then temperatures on Sunday look like they're going to climb near or just above zero again. So we may see some showers. That's our next weather maker will move in, and we may see some showers with that. That's really the story through central as well. Temperatures at this point looking like they could be 2 or 3 degrees. And then we're looking at a similar forecast for western Newfoundland. So Saturday for sure the nicest day of the weekend, and then we get unsettled as we head into Sunday. For eastern Labrador, -6 by Saturday with sunshine, and then return of those flurries or light snow for Sunday with temperatures down into the minus teens overnight. A warm up for Lab West, but then dipping into the minus 27 degree range as we head into Sunday evening. So I wanted to share this photo. This is overlooking Fairyland on a gray day. This was Gerald's photo. He shared that with me. And if you have any weather photos to share with me, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Lovely. Thanks, Ashley. And Peter, we are expecting a briefing tomorrow. What are we going to be looking for there?
Lots of questions about the vaccination rollout plan. We haven't seen one for this province. Lots of other provinces have rolled theirs out. So especially with the outbreak right now, it's on a lot of people's minds. So I'm sure we'll have some questions on that. Plus, of course, all the latest updates on the number of cases, and maybe we'll get a glimpse on when the lockdown might end. Who knows?
All right, great. Thanks, Peter. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Good night.
Have a good night.